sacred space. Make sacred space and be reminded of who you are. Make sacred space. Make sacred space. And be reminded of who you are. You are spirit and body, spirit and body, spirit and body, sacred space. Make sacred space. Make sacred space. And be reminded of who you are. You are spirit and body, spirit and body, spirit and body, sacred space. Sacred space. And so, as the spiral that we're looking at spirals into a brighter light, let us spiral into ourself. Let us spiral into ourself and find that light within the Holy of Holies of the sacred tabernacle, which is our body. We are the temple of God. And there is a light that is never extinguished. There is a flame that can never go out. It is the eternal life that we live. And like all of those patterns leading into the circle, perhaps those are just aspects of ourself. Not wrong, not right, but we follow those aspects. We love those aspects. We celebrate those characters, strengths and flaws, to the one that resides within. And so with that idea and consciousness in mind, I speak my word of blessing for this evening, for each person here, and for all of the activities that we will partake of. I bless each activity. I bless each meditation. I bless each story that we tell ourselves. For eventually there's only one thing to know, and it is the light within. Thank you, sweet Spirit, and so it is. Good to have you here. It's kind of dark out there. I think you're here. It's nice to have you. Wow. I'm grateful that we are breaking through such severe COVID protocol that we can be together. Because this is one of my favorite activities, Good Friday. I actually like it more than Easter. Although, of course, that's wonderful. I can't downplay Easter. We're supposed to be here on Sunday, so yeah, it's fine. But let me just begin by saying Joseph Campbell is quoted as saying, "The universe is made up not of atoms, but of stories." I've always credited him with that because I have one of his books, and that's almost on the cover of it, one of the front pages. But I've later found out that he was probably quoting Pierre de Chardin. Thank you. What a long name. Pierre de Chardin. And because I see that was also attributed to him. And if you think about it, our universe, the place that we live, we're the center of it. We see things and we notice things, and a lot of things that we see, we notice, and respond to are caused by a story that we're constantly telling ourselves, and then they reinforce the story. So really, the stories create our life, our experience. So we're going to tell the story again tonight. I've gone enough places, and I've just returned from Egypt, and I think I've noticed it more in Egypt than anywhere else, although it's also prevalent in Greece. Those are the two places I've seen that they're so prevalent, is that the wisdom teachers of those places taught the illiterate people stories. I hear noises. Is there... Is it me, really? Yeah. Oh, really? Well, that's so odd because that didn't sound like me. That's very high. I'm going to lower my voice. Have you ever been, oh, that's my voice? Okay, so anyway, what I noticed is that the wisdom teachers of ancient places would help people live a life that would be more expressive and perhaps more nurturing, or even just survival, by telling them stories. So it was all about the stories, and sometimes they would even act out the stories. And I like to tell the story of the teacher, Jesus, on Friday night, because Easter is actually so much older than this night. Easter is thousands of years older than 2,000 years ago. But so more on that on Sunday. But Good Friday is about a man who was wrapped in a story that became a myth. And the myth is like a collective dream. It influences us, whether we're conscious of it or not. How many of you have ever woke up and you know something happened during the night because you're either on edge or you're peaceful or whatever? You just know something happened. And some of us remember those dreams. Well, a myth is a collective dream. It affects us. But we get to interpret the dream. Now, the myth is going to stay the same. It's still in race consciousness, but we can interpret it. Just like if you had a dream about racing, you could say, ooh, I'm supposed to become a race driver. I'm just going to drop everything and become a race driver. Or you could interpret it that perhaps you're going too fast with your decisions. Do you see how you still get to interpret? So tonight we're going to interpret the final stages of this man's story and the myth that was created around it, so that it lifts us up and allows us to be fully human. I want to just talk about fully human. I was reading one of the Gnostic Gospels last night and today, and it's the Gospel according to Mary Magdalene. And in that, Jesus' purpose that she was telling the other disciples, Jesus' purpose is that everyone could be fully human, live fully, explore fully, own their powers fully, embrace life fully. And yet, the word in the Greek was more than just fully human because it's been translated that way, but it could also be that the human fully embodied the spirit. Do you see how whole that would be? How holistic that would be? So perhaps tonight, through our looking at the story, we embrace more of our spirit into our humanity, individually and collectively. That's what I'm going for. That's what I'm going for. Now I've told you what my ambition is. Let's go there. So I think that the way we will interpret this is better than the interpretation that some people have had, that we were so bad from the beginning that God had to die to pay for our sins. That's an interpretation, it's a valid interpretation, but it doesn't necessarily lift us up to being fully human. To being fully human. It doesn't allow us to embrace the spirit and the body that we are as one. And all I know is that nobody looks at a child and doesn't see their innocence. And if they do look at a child and not see their innocence, something's wrong with that adult. Because the innocence shines forth. And that's what I want everyone to experience, because that would allow us to be more fully human. So the first thing that we're going to do is take a deep breath and begin the process. And in the story, there are times that Jesus is alone. He knows stuff's happening. He knows how politics are. He knows how the course is laid. He knows that things are going to unfold a certain way. I mean, he's pretty sure. And so he takes 3 of his friends, maybe more, but 3 are named, and they go into a garden. And he says, I can get through this, but to get through this, I'm really going to have to pray, and I really want you to pray with me. Just pray with me. And they fall asleep. It says, that didn't last long. And he was, in the story, it looks like he's alone. It looks like he's all on his own. And yet he's praying. And yet he has the courage then to move forward. See, we can think we're on our own. We can think that we've been abandoned. No one's going through this with me. And yet, we can't be alone, because that bright light at the center of our being is God. So I'd like you to think of a time that you felt alone. It could be in the decision you had to make. It could be in an action you had to take. It could be you were physically alone. You moved somewhere and all of your support system was gone. I'd really like you to think about that. And Joel's going to play some nice music while that's happening. Just think of a time that you were alone. And think of another time that you were alone. And another time. You reached out, but nobody took the call. You really wanted to talk to somebody, but you didn't know who to talk to. You had to make a decision, you had to make it quickly, and there was no one to consult. You moved, and you didn't know anyone in the neighborhood, and besides that, where are you going to get your hair cut and your clothes cleaned? There can be so many times where this feeling of isolation and loneliness can be almost heartbreaking. And yet, reinterpret that. See those scenes once again. And see that there was always that light with you. It was in you and around you. And notice, pay attention to the small details. Notice how somehow you made it through. Because we're going to do some stuff tonight. And you're going to look at things that may not feel like a fun Friday night occasion. And yet, that same Spirit will be with you through each thing that we do. Because it's always been with you. It's always been with me. It's always with all those people that we want to help. There's always that.
Every time I try to make it on my own, every time I try to stand and start to fall, and all those lonely roads that I have traveled on, there was Spirit. When the life I built came crashing to the ground, when the friends I had were nowhere to be found, I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now. There was Spirit. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Spirit. For this woman who needs amazing kind of grace, for forgiveness at a price I couldn't pay. I'm not perfect, so I thank God every day. There was Spirit. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Spirit. On the mountain, in the valleys, there was Spirit. In the shadows of the alley, there was Spirit. In the fire, in the flood, there was Spirit. Always is and always was. No, you'll never walk alone. You are always there. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Spirit.
in the diagnosis, in the loss of the job, in seeing your friends scramble and try to make ends meet when everything seems so topsy-turvy and the economy is like, what the is going on? When you've made 20 offers on a home and still nobody wants to sell to you. When you've prayed for a significant other and no one seems to be swiping right on you. In the middle of all of it, there is something that says, look unto me and be saved. Saved from the struggle, saved from the feeling powerless, saved from the confusion, saved from the need to make something happen, saved from the need to be right. Oh, that's being human. But the man that is a teacher to millions and billions of people said that we could be fully human. We could let the Spirit totally work in this human incarnation and their spirit. Can we hear that one more time? I think with a little joy and a little like, are you ready to have it happen? You're being way too, I know, we turned down the lights. Get over it.
In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know and I couldn't see it, there was Spirit. There was Spirit. There was Spirit.
Thank you. And since Spirit is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, if it was ever with us, it is always with us. It is with us. And it'll be with us in this next look at this story. This story is so good. How many of you have had friends, and then all of a sudden, they ghost you? Like, what? And you don't even know what happened. If they just said, you know, I've got other interests, or we're going on a different way, but they just disappear. What happened? Well, this is Jesus' experience. So many of his experiences are our experiences. It is said by one of my teachers, Emma Curtis Hopkins, that he lived a life that we could all live so he could show us how to overcome our own difficulties. That's maybe why he said, follow me. Do what I do when they do this. And they did it. So Palm Sunday, last Sunday, I was at a horse show. My horse did good. Yeah, I'll show you the buckle someday. When I get it. Anyway. On Palm Sunday, everybody loves him. You know, hey, Zana, ho, Zana, Zana, Zana. Oh, I got palms on the ground, and he's riding in, and everybody's cheering, because they had an expectation, and the expectation was he's going to show up, and he is somehow going to call on God, and we are going to send the Romans home. They gave him 6 whole days. It didn't happen. How many of you know you have not lived up to someone else's expectations? Yeah, guess what? It's universal. It's part of the story. It's part of the myth. Now, you can interpret it a whole bunch of ways, but it happens. We disappoint people. It's a never-ending story. Try as you might, you will disappoint people, and what's really awful is if you think you won't, and then you try really hard and you still do. So if we just get we're going to disappoint people, I mean, Jesus disappointed people. And so did Buddha. I don't know about Lao Tzu, but probably. So you need to forgive yourself and give yourself a break because you can't be that good. You have to just be yourself. You have to be fully human and embrace the spirit that wants to live through you. And then, not only did he disappoint people, people then disappointed him. He had a bunch of followers. They were like close. They spent 3 years together. And when he needed them the most, they not only didn't show up, they denied that they knew him. And what did he say to that? What did he say to the people who had turned on him? What did he say about the people who he was close to that just couldn't be with him? He said, "Forgive them, for they really don't know what they're doing." Somehow he understood that they were acting out of their own sense of insecurity. They were acting out of their own fear. They were acting out of their own ideas about how things should be. And you know what? They had their own story. And he didn't buy into their story. I mean, talk about an interpretation that could free us up. Because most of our stuff is about other people's stuff. Have you noticed it? Really? And he's saying, like, that's their issue. That's their wound. It really doesn't have anything to do with them. Father, mother, God within. Actually, when they use the word father, that's been interpreted as father, he meant origin. That's light within him. Light within everyone. Forgive them because they don't know what they're doing because they're still acting out of, remember that spiral? Out of some character fear or wound or self-description that doesn't let them see that something wonderful is happening here. So forgive them. So just as this is a part of everyone's story, it's also part of your story. You have people you have disappointed. You couldn't have done anything that probably would have not disappointed them because I'm going to say this and it's the sweetest way I can. They were a disappointment waiting to happen. Just as you've been a disappointment waiting to happen at times, haven't you? Have you ever know that something's going to go wrong and then you see it, search for it, and it happens? It's a never-ending story. Plus, people will sometimes not be able to live up to our expectations and we will feel betrayed. Take a deep breath. Now, I'd love for you to move into the consciousness of that light that is within you. Some people call it the Atman, the higher self, or the Christ. So move into that light and see some people. Let just Spirit give you faces. And in your heart of hearts, from that light that's in your heart, just say, Father, Mother, God within, forgive them. Or Spirit, forgive them. Or whatever, forgive them. Just see them and forgive them. Say the words. Now some of you are going to think, because I know I would think this, it can't be that easy. No, it's got to be hard. I have to suffer a little longer. Well, suffering we'll handle later. But it's like, I got to go through something. I got to have some cathartic experience. Or they should pay. Or, oh, no. See, this is so wonderful. In the Bible it says, the ideas of God confound the human mind because it's more simple than we make it. What if it could be this simple? What if God could move through you in such a way that you no longer hold anything against anyone, including yourself? But you won't know unless you try. So see a face. Let the Holy Spirit reveal to you someone and someone and someone and someone and someone and someone and someone. And these people, they don't have safe space in your consciousness. But if we walk into this story like the ancients walked into the stories of their gods and their heroes, if we walk into this story, we can come from that consciousness, that everlasting light within that has been known as the Christ, and we can just say, it's forgiven, it's forgiven, it's forgiven, it's forgiven, it's forgiven. And all of a sudden, the actions didn't change, but they no longer bug us. And we no longer have a need to please. We no longer need to please. Wow. I speak my word that it is the Spirit of God that is the inner teacher. Jesus said, if I go away, there will be a Spirit that will teach you. So it is that Spirit, that light within, that is showing us the simplicity of a spiritual faith. And once a year, we get to come together and clean up what happened the year before. And this is a beautiful time for doing that. Just as the Jewish people are cleaning their homes and in readiness for the Passover, let us clean our soul in readiness for the springing forth of Easter. I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home.
And with each forgiveness, with each person that we know have their own story, and it probably had nothing to do with us, whether they felt betrayed or we felt abandoned or they denied us or they just ghosted us or they spoke bad about us, when we realize that they are just in their own story, our story can be one of such love that all we can do is love them for the light that they are, not the actions they do, but we begin to see their innocence and that they are wrapped up in a story, but we're not going to get wrapped up in it as well. And we are free because that light within is always free. And one of the things that keeps us from just moving on is the belief that somehow we get brownie points in heaven for suffering. How many of you have heard the story and bought into the myth of long suffering and how good it is? Well, once again, Jesus broke that one open. Now I want to tell you a miracle. This is a miracle. Jesus died, according to the story, in like 2 or 3 hours. That's a miracle. I'm not quite ready. I need to tell this story first. He died in 2 or 3 hours. Now, you have to realize that the Romans invented crucifixion to be the longest, most miserable way of torturing a person to death ever. So they made it so there was no quick death. A quick death was an honorable death. And when Romans wanted to get rid of somebody that they saw as a traitor or somebody that was not in alignment with the way they wanted to do politics, which were usually people that were not Roman citizens, death was long and slow. So he's up on the cross. He forgives the guy, I don't know, the right or the left, doesn't matter. He says, "You'll be with me today in paradise." And then he's just like done. Like, okay, I'm done. I knew I was going to die, but this suffering is just not worth. I'm so done. He actually says, "It's finished," and he dies. And like nobody can believe that he could just die. What? In fact, that's why they put a spear through him. It's like, really? He can't be dead, and he's really dead. That's a miracle. Now, he knew, well, I'm not going to get into what he knew. I'm not going to get into why he decided that this death was the way to go, except it certainly did get people's attention and would keep the message going faster. But he wasn't willing to suffer, and he stopped. There is an ancient mystical teaching that says, we can say, "I'm done suffering," and we will be done suffering. But we don't know that. We think that things have to take their course. And it'll wind down, and eventually it'll be better. Now, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen. Stuff happens. Even to spiritual people, even to nice people, even people here. Stuff will still happen. Suffering, the Buddha said, is optional. And Jesus said, "I'm done with this." Now, I've been playing around with this, and I've watched people play around with it, and it does seem to work. There is a law that you get to say, "I'm done, it's over." So you get a chance to play with this. I'm going to ask you to suffer. My wonderful husband, who was raised Catholic, said, "I remember the Stations of the Cross." And carrying some people wanted to carry a cross around, and that was sort of suffering. It's way too heavy, and there's not enough time to get a cross to all of you. So we're going to do it a different way. What you're going to do is I want you first to think of something that you know you're suffering with, something that you just suffer through. It's not pleasant, but you willing to just, like, it'll get better. It's going to get better. I can handle this. And then you need to spread out, because this is going to be interactive. So just be so that you can spread out a little bit. Oh, I love it. Thank you for showing the way. And because I want you to put your hands out. You're going to be on your own cross. And some of you are like, "Oh, yes! Oh, brings back my Catholic imagery. I'm so happy. Yay." So just don't put your hands out until you know what you suffer with. So this is you suffering there. This is you on this cross of, I put up with, I can handle it. It'll get, like in God's good time, it'll get better. And at first it's not too bad, is it? Not too bad. No. I can do it. Until your muscles start to say, "I don't want to." And then there'll be a part of you that says, "No, I can do it, honest. I can really do this. I'll show them. I'll show myself." Ask yourself, who are you showing, actually? Who cares but you? Now, we got some good suffering music. And at any time when the pain of keeping your arms up gets unbearable, and we're going to see who stands up. It's always a few people's like, "Look, last person standing."
That's not something to strive for. I suffered more. How many of you know people that tell people how much they suffered and there's just a little bit of pride in it? Oh, the suffering I've done for you and for the world and for my animals and blah, 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 blah. How many of you know those people? There may not be here. But when you're done, I want you to say it's finished, but then when you you're going to put your hands down, but I want you to say you're finished with the suffering of your life. That human experience of suffering that this is only a symbol of, when you put your hands down, you're done. And I want you to say, when you put your hands down, and say it to the suffering that you're going through, like making a decision, needing to make a move, trying really hard to get along with somebody. When you put your hands down, I want you to say it's finished, and it's not just your hands. That area of suffering in your life will be done. It's finished. And then you may be seated. Oh, wow. I'm glad I put him down when I did. Gee. Whew. Well, we're going to have an offering, and then we're going to die. So stick around for the death. Because there is no rising up without a dying to something. The seed has to die to being a seed for the flower to come up. The shell has to be broken open for the bird to come out. We have to die to what's not working to be resurrected and to be lifted into what can work. So that will be our final opportunity. So right now, Michael, is Michael? That's so dark. Is this Michael? Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, we did? No. Michael, sit right there. Yeah, thank you. I was so excited to die. But we're not going to die right now. So I do need to say that there is an answer to our suffering, and it will always be God. God has an answer. When we're willing to stop suffering, that's when God gives us an answer.
Here we all are, gathered together in this place. Why are we here? What is our purpose? Spirit, reveal. How do we know what's true and what's real? We may not know where life's road will lead, but it doesn't matter, long as we believe that God is the answer. God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. What's going on in this world today? Where do we fit? What can we do to make a difference? What can we say? Where do we go? This way or that way? If we all pray and truly believe if we all pray and truly, 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 truly believe, love one another and let this world see God is the answer. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes to whatever the question may be, whatever the question may be.
Thank you. That was worth putting off the resurrection. I'm telling you, that was marvelous. And I'm really grateful that LaVon could just fill in such short notice because our other musician was, dealing with COVID protocols. And so we're just all being careful. So be careful and love each other, even if it might be at an arm's length. So, Michael, you can bring your basket forward. And if any of you would like to support this ministry and what we're doing here, we would love to have you do that. So Michael's going to begin by blessing the basket. And what we do, instead of passing things around, what we do now is let people bring forth or bring up their gift and keeping a little bit of distance from each other. And if you are like a lot of people and you just have automatic giving, then just bless it, because your blessing is important. Whether it's financial or spiritual or however you do it, we are grateful. Thank you. And while this is happening, I will say that Easter's the celebratory time. It will be exciting and a celebration of spring, that it is, which is what it's been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. One of the things I often say is that you will not find Easter in the Bible. That's a word that we adopted from Northern Europe. Oh, and Babylonia, a couple of other places. Before we begin, I just want to say that we're in such a harmonic, beautiful place and space with so many people starting their Passover celebration this evening. And both stories are about freedom. Both stories are about freedom in different ways at different times. So, very quickly, they needed to prepare a place for Jesus to be entombed, entombed. They had to prepare the body and love it and put it away because the Sabbath was about to begin. And that would have been work, and they weren't supposed to do that. And that was on Friday, and on Sunday, at the break of day,
Mary Magdalene, showed up to do the final preparation for the body, and there was nothing there. There was no body. Different stories tell it differently. But in some of the stories, there were angels outside, and they said, "Who are you looking for?" And Mary said, my teacher, Joshua. Jesus wasn't in the Bible either. In the story, Joshua ben Joseph, and they said, "Well, he's not here." It seems like something had rolled away the stone and lifted him up into a different realm of consciousness. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because the angels, I think, were there, or the symbols of them were there to teach us something, that there's always some sort of heavenly help when we need it. Also, another interpretation of some Bible stories is that when people would confront an angel, they were confronting a high idea. And it could have been that the high ideas that Jesus had been keeping for however long he was alive, it's up for grabs, those high ideas lifted him up out of that confinement. Now, did it happen? I don't know. It's lots of theory. But boy, the myth is great. And I will say that in certain mystery schools, the final initiation was for someone to be let out of a tomb, and they came out either dead, crazy, or enlightened. So this was not a new story, especially when the story started being told to what might have been considered pagans or heathens. They knew that story. They were familiar with that story. I don't know if it happened. But I don't know that once I lay my body down, I want it to come back up again. I'll probably be finished. But I do know there's a whole lot about my personality I wouldn't mind leaving someplace and be lifted up by angels. There's a retreat that I do. I'm not going to say which one it is because I want you to go there and be surprised someday. Where people actually go through the process of dropping down and then have the experience of angels lifting them up. And before they drop, they say, "I'm dying too." And then they feel themselves being lifted and they say, "And I'm rising in." It would be really hard to get the soft place for you to fall into and the sheets to lift you back up. And besides that, we'd be here all night for all of you to do that. But we can do it in a way. A way that we've done it before in a service like this is that people will stand up and have someone help them. And I know this is all COVID stuff, so it's only to the degree that you feel comfortable with it. But someone might, for instance, do we still have light on me? Can I go forward? Someone might be here with a friend and allow themselves to drop onto the seat. And then they might have a friend, and I want you to really drop, I die too, it's going to stay in this chair. Then we'll smudge this place, so whatever you died to won't be here on Easter. And this does work to the degree you get into the myth and you let the myth work you. So the interpretation has been it happened then. What if the interpretation is it happens now? What if we can make this story our story? And then someone will
if you choose, if you have someone that you want to work with, someone will take your hands and pull you to your feet. And when you are pulled to your feet, you say, and I rise in. Anybody can do that? You think you can do this? Would anybody want to participate? You don't have to, because it's all sort of like weird and who's touching me? And but you're going. Well, we all go. So what I'd like you to do, some people want to sit and spectate, which is fine. And some people want to participate. If you want to participate, find someone to participate with, or one of our, like Robert will help because he's a practitioner, and Jim will help because he's a practitioner, and Abigail will help because she's a minister. Andrea will help because she's a minister. So come on up here. So find a place that you could do this easily, like on the ends. Yep. You could do it on the ends. Yeah. On the ends, you could help because you could pull anybody up. All right. So if you want to, get some of these front chairs. Get on the end. If you have a partner, you're going to have to help them too. If you need to. Do you want to do this? Yeah. Okay, come on up. Well, because I want you to, she's got to pull you up, so you got to have some room.
Some space.
Yeah, there's space. You have to have some space for somebody to pull you. Oh, well, don't start yet. Just let me know where you're at. I love it. See, they moved a chair. How smart are you? Yes. Come on over here. We'll just make sure everybody's got a space. They're standing or not. Do you have somebody to pull you up?
No.
Okay, Abigail's there for you. And anybody want to do it but don't have anybody? Wait. Jim, will you help Maria? Right there. Oh, then, okay. Never mind. I just wanted to make sure. It looked like 3, and there's not enough time for 3. Everybody got somebody that wants somebody? Okay. Don't miss this opportunity.
Don't miss the chair. No.
Don't miss the chair. Yes. Please put your knees against the chair. Put your knees against the chair. You guys, come on. Now.
I didn't want to stand too early.
Okay, here, you need to do it on the side.
Okay.
Because he's got to pull you and there's no room there.
Okay.
I'm just situating. All right, so we have some great woo-woo music. Now listen, the person that's behind, right, please, I'll feel safer and you'll feel safer to fall if you're right up against the chair. Okay, great. You are? Good.
Then we'll switch.
Okay, so wait. Before you sit down, and I want you to feel like you're dying. That's why I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to just plop yourself in that chair. And I want you to say, what are you dying to? What if this is the time, it's the end. She's there. Now, when you're ready to rise up, you just wiggle a finger. She's going to come and pull you up, and then when you pull up, you say, I rise in, or I rise up too. Did you want...
And when you're done, simply find your seat again, and we'll know how many people still need time that way. Thank you for those of you that participated. For those of you who are watching online, do this with someone when you have someone to lift you up, because there's this experience. How many of you got the experience of being lifted when somebody just pulls you? See, too many of us think we got to do it all ourselves. Let's die to that. Let's die to the idea that we're here all by ourselves. I mean, that whole story is, no, you're not. You're not alone. You're going to flub up. Other people will too. Get over it. Stop suffering about your suffering. And at any time, you can let a part of that character, of that flaw, die. It's like the shell doesn't need to be there anymore. It served a purpose. Whatever you died to served a purpose at one time. But you've probably outgrown it. So you leave it in the cave of nothingness from which it came, and you rise up new. And you let Spirit run our life.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all by myself. I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God was at hand. But now I can say,
What can you say? Come on, say
if
it.
you're discouraged,
I'm discouraged.
struggling to make it through another day.
Just another day.
Yeah. You gotta let it go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit, and I'm only here for God.